welcome to the second official installment in our Quick Find series. These are a series of educational webinars, all 20 minutes or less, exclusively for Claremine customers. And today's topic is maximize your data's usability with split and extract. We have with us Caden Carroll, Customer Success Manager. And to go over our agenda, first we'll quickly review naming conventions and why they're important. Then we'll take a look at some split and extract use cases. Then we'll demonstrate how to set everything up. And then finally, we will have time for Q&A. And with all that said, I will pass it over to Caden.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. Hey, everyone. Excited to talk to you guys today. So we're going to start with our agenda on naming conventions. So we'll get going here. So we wanted to give everyone a baseline on naming conventions. I'm sure if not all of you understand what a naming convention already is, but we'll talk about it quickly here. So naming conventions are data standards defining how attributes or components create a digital marketing campaign, right? In digital marketing campaign name, instead of just using an open text field that follows any character with any format, right? So why do we use naming conventions? Why are they popular? Tracking performance and further analytics on those names. We can take a name that followed our convention and quickly take pieces out to answer questions about that campaign. And since we have a standard, we can easily compare across multiple campaigns, right? And then the other piece to that is user productivity. When we have standardized names, users can quickly search, browse, and understand that information about a campaign that they may not even set up, either from a different team if we have the same standard across teams or within a team. And then this graphic here shows kind of a simplistic campaign name and its identifiers separated by delimiter. We also showcase how many teams use short codes in their naming conventions as well. So as we know, naming conventions give you the ability to encode metadata into your ID or your names, either with those short codes or even other methods. Split and extract is helpful in decoding that metadata so we can then audit and validate existing campaign, creative placement names, or other ID names against naming conventions and marketing taxonomies. We can also use it to quickly convert coded dimensions into readable formats or split out specific values. And then we have a little bit of an automation piece with that as well that we'll get into. So let's begin. Let's start talking about how we can use split and extract to audit and validate existing data. So we know that media teams and agencies are using a variety of naming conventions today in varying processes to create your campaigns. With split and extract, we can do kind of a health check on that adherence to that media taxonomy that we have in place. We have this example where a customer is looking to audit GCM campaign placement and creative names. We can build a template that uses lists with those correct values. And instead of manually looking at this list and making sure the value is correct in the name on a manual process, we can automate that. And it's easy enough to just copy and paste these into a template or bring them in automatically through another method. And we parse out those values and perform that audit for you. This graphic kind of shows us that example that we just talked about where split and extract has already been used. Our first column has our source or our ID field, and the rest of our metadata columns have been parsed out and autofilled to the correct spot. Don't worry, because the demo that we're going to go through later will actually show us how we actually achieved this result, right? Jumping into our second example, converting short codes. Another use for split and extract is to help convert those short codes or abbreviations into a human readable format before we send that downstream to analytics. We know that oftentimes teams have set up naming conventions or your shorthand abbreviations or codes to make their campaign name shorter and more manageable. Sometimes that's a requirement of a certain system you're using, or sometimes that's just how we set it up. So a naming convention within a naming convention, so to speak. And one team might have a short code process. They pass that campaign to the next team who adds in their campaign details that have more short codes, leading to multiple layers of coded data, sometimes using different delimiters. With split and extract, we can parse out those naming conventions and even parse those out into multiple layers. We can parse out again, and then as many times as we need to be able to associate the human readable format with our coded campaign name. So for example, if we have values separated by an underscore, and then there's values within those values that are separated by a dash, we can split out the underscored values into their respective fields, while at the same time splitting out the values separated by that dash. And we'll showcase that here today as well. As you know, there's advantages to using short codes, and with split and extract, we can make it even better. The final thing to talk through here is using automation with split and extract to make some of these things even easier. So what does that mean? The first part here is using powered lists with specific values. So powering lists with specific values, there's two paths here when we bring in powered lists with split and extract. The first one is saving these extracted elements into a powered list to be used on another template. So we have a campaign name that includes things like geo, product, channel, maybe a random ID, et cetera, right? We can parse out the product name or the geo and place those into a powered list to be used on another template for another reason. The other option with powered list is almost kind of the reverse method there, where say we fill out another template, like a creative template, for example, first, and we have a unique ID associated with all of those metadata fields in that template. If we know that creative and it's part of our full campaign, we can parse out that unique ID and have it be the first field in a powered list on like our campaign template, which will essentially bring all of our creative metadata along with it. And we can send all of it downstream together instead of from two different templates. If that's feeling confusing at all, don't worry. We're going to show this in the demo. We're going to illustrate that point. If you watch the demo and you still feel confused, don't worry, because you have an awesome CSN that you can ask questions to. So we're all good. Another point on automation, in probably the coolest option, in my opinion, is using integrations with your media platforms to automatically bring in those naming conventions and perform that audit validation. So an example there is if we have a template with Facebook connected, for example, we can automatically bring in those naming conventions, split and extract them, and drop them into pending. And all we have to do is look at the results and see if we made any mistakes. And if we didn't, we can send those downstream. What if you don't have your media integration connected, or you want to illustrate the power of the data standards to another team not currently using the data standards cloud? We can still build a template and simply copy and paste those campaign names, placement names, creative names into our template and see if this other team has adherence to the naming conventions that we're hoping to use. Oftentimes, that's enough to show how hard it is to be 100% in compliance without some sort of software. So next, we're going to go through this demo on setting up split and extract. And these are kind of the major features of the split and extract we're going to try and cover here today. So we can configure automatic logic on our field during setup, where and what value we pull, right? And then we can also split any text based on common or even custom delimiters. We can show you a preview of what value we will be pulling while we're setting up split and extract. It's extremely useful, so you don't set it up incorrectly and then you have to go back and forth. And then decoding data. So complex naming conventions can be quickly broken down and understood. And then the last piece, automation, automatic extraction of our data as it's imported into the product from media integrations or another source. So let's show you guys how to actually set up split and extract. So whenever we're going to set up a new template, we typically start with pick lists. We're going to start with field sets here. I've already built my pick list just to save us time. We're going to jump into our split and extract field set. Here we have a list of columns, a couple of lists, a couple of open text fields. Our full campaign name open text field is going to be our value that we're going to be parsing out into these other columns, right? So into our code columns, which are dependent lists, where the code is the first column and the full name value is the dependent value based on the code that we parse out. And we're going to parse out the first part into our campaign. This is kind of what our little name looks like here. We've got a year and a little ID, and then the rest are separated by underscore. So all of our code values. So let's set this up. When setting up split and extract, you click on the column that you want in split and extract to, where you want to send the data to. We find the transform section in the extract data option, and we click split and extract on delimiter. We choose where we're going to extract from, and then we choose our delimiter. We're going to do underscore for in this case, and we're going to do position 1. The awesome option here is we have a little preview box that shows you what value we're actually going to pull. So in this case, this is correct. We want to pull that full little campaign string right here with that year and ID. And then we're going to go map the rest of these. Just click done, click into our next one, find the extract option, split and extract on delimiter, choose where we're extracting from, and our delimiter. And this should be position 2 here, and we can preview to double check. Yes, perfect. Done. Country code. Same thing. Oh, that's actually position 4. Good thing we have this preview, right? It save us a little bit of headache of going back and forth. Then we just map the rest of these very quickly based on our position and double check along the way. Perfect. Now that we have all of those mapped, we just hit save. And once this saves, we can jump into our template. I already have the field set placed on the template. Again, just to save us a little bit of time here. So we're going to jump into our template. I'm going to paste in some values and show you kind of what this looks like. So you can see we have some grayed out columns, right? Those are our dependent lists, the full name values based on the codes that we parse out. And as soon as we place in our full campaign names, we're going to split out into those columns automatically based on what we set up. You can see our full names here, our region and country based on our country code, and then our full tactic name based on our tactic here. Now I'm going to bring in some values some full campaign names that weren't formatted properly to show you kind of what that looks like. So you can see immediately where we are either missing values or we've used the wrong value, whether it be because it's case sensitive or it's just the wrong value entirely, right? So we can quickly fix those errors from here, or we can go back to where we built these campaign names at the start of the process and rebuild them correctly and ingest them. Next use case I kind of want to show you is kind of the nested parsing. So you can see here in our full campaign name, we break out this campaign section, right? But these are separated by dashes. And I want to separate out these values into respective columns as well. We've got a year, and then we have a creative ID for the purposes of this demonstration. And this creative ID is actually generated on another template where we fill in tons of metadata details about the creative, and then we generate this creative ID. So what I'm going to show you is splitting out that creative ID. It's going to be the first column in a powered list from that creative template. So we can bring in all our metadata associated to that creative ID automatically without having to manually select anything. So let's jump to that field set here, and we're going to map out those. So we've got our powered field set. So we've got the powered from our creative here. So again, we're parsing out our campaign section here. We just need to parse out the year and the ID. So we're going to go find the year. I'm going to split and extract on delimiter from our campaign field. And then based on a dash, that should be position 2 for the year, right? Yep, so that's pulling correctly. And then we just have to map our ID field for creative ID. Campaign based on a dash, position 3, double check, boom, perfect. And we can hit save. Now we can jump into that powered template. Now that we have our year column and our creative ID column mapped correctly, we can paste in our values. You can see all of these grayed out columns because again, this is a powered list, right? So I could go and select an ID that I've generated and it's going to pull in all this information. But we don't want to do that manually. We don't want to associate those manually to our campaign. We want to do it automatically based on what's already provided. So we paste in these values. It's going to parse out the same that we've seen on the previous template, but it's also going to take that year and ID from the campaign field and fill them into their respective columns. And since this is the first step in a powered list, it's going to automatically bring in all of our values associated with these unique IDs. An easy way to connect things across templates or in different use cases to connect things so we can submit these and send them downstream to analytics all together. And that is our demo for today. Thank you, everyone.